Ever wondered how you could work with your menstrual cycle instead of working against it? In today's episode, I sit down with Jess Marshall of Courageous Woman Wellness and talk all about cycle syncing and how you can start incorporating it into your daily routine. Jess is a woman's hormone health coach who helps busy women balance and support their hormones by using simple daily habits. Also, just an FYI, the audio quality from my guest isn't the best in this episode. I did try my best to fix it in the post-production process, but there's really only so much that I can do. So I did want to still air it because Jess shares tons of amazing knowledge throughout the interview about cycle syncing, but I did want to just forewarn you that that might be an issue. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear today's conversation, and I cannot wait to hear your thoughts. Let's dive into the episode. Welcome to the Moms Make Money podcast. I'm your host, Jenny. I'm the owner of Moms Make Money Collective, a podcast and visibility strategist and mom of two. Many moms feel like we need to sacrifice our careers for our children, but I wholeheartedly believe that we can have a thriving business and family at the same time. In this podcast, we're going to be diving into the ins and outs of running a business as a mom and getting real and raw about all things parenting. So buckle up because we're about to go all in. Hi, Jess. Welcome to the Moms Make Money podcast. I'm super excited you're here and I can't wait to chat with you today. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you make money online?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Jenny. And so I am Jess. I'm a women's hormone health coach. And so I help women, busy women, balance and support their hormones just using their simple daily habits. I'm all about realistic, sustainable habits, um, making things work in your daily life and knowing that everybody's situation and life, job, home, everything is different and unique. So really approaching it from that point of view.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really important. And I like that you embrace that everyone's life situation is different because I've seen so many people try to do like a one size fits all approach, and that obviously isn't going to work for everyone because everyone's scenarios are totally different. So I'm really excited to have you here today because I've been seeing a lot about something called like cycle syncing, and it's been popping up over the last couple of years, becoming more and more popular. So can you tell us a little bit about what that is and like what are some of the benefits of implementing it?
Yeah, definitely. So what cycle syncing is it's simply just adjusting your habits. So like nutrition, fitness, self-care activities, your work tasks, even your social obligations, your to-do list. So adjusting those according to the four distinct phases of your menstrual cycle. And some of the benefits that you can get when you sync your habits with your menstrual cycle include more energy, more effective workouts, so better results from those workouts, whether you're looking to gain strength or lose weight, less PMS symptoms, so less mood swings, less cramps, less menstrual migraines, smoother periods, and honestly, just feeling less frazzled and burnt out because you are working with your body and hormones and not against them, like a lot of those popular diets or super intense workout programs are actually having you do. And so this leads to better consistency of your habits also, since you understand that you won't show up exactly the same every single day because your hormones are fluctuating throughout your menstrual cycle. And that's going to totally affect how you can do your habits. And like I just said, how you can show up. And the cycle syncing is really just, it can help you get more in tune with your body and just feel a lot more in control of like everything in your life, you know?
Yeah, I think that's really important. And who doesn't want to like work with what their body is telling them versus against? Because I know it can be so challenging sometimes when you're like in that phase where you're just feeling so tired, but you like plan to launch or something. And it can be yeah, you're just like, I gotta push through. I plan this lunch. I gotta do it like as a business owner, but you're really not feeling it mentally or physically. So I think working with it instead of against it is so great because you can really, I mean, if you have a cycle that is more predictable, I know some people don't. I know some people like one of my friends, I know hers is like all over the place. Like some days she's like, oh, it was right on the money this month, but then the next month it's like 2 weeks later or something. So I think that's obviously harder, but yeah. So who do you actually recommend like cycle syncing for? Do you think it's something every woman should do? Obviously, like a lot of my audience is moms. So say they're like in their fourth trimester, they just had their baby, they're in that postpartum period. Obviously, their cycle is like not quite synced yet or back even, really. I mean, sometimes it takes months for people to get it back. But when would you suggest that those type of people look into cycle syncing?
So I can definitely relate to this. I just had our third baby back in October, and I just started my second period, a
Okay.
postpartum period since then.
Yeah.
So I totally get this. I'm just coming back into more regular menstrual cycles. So I was kind of in that limbo period for a bit. But pretty much any menstruating woman can sync her habits with her menstrual cycle. In that early postpartum period, like those first 2 or 3 months, like you mentioned, the fourth trimester, I wouldn't worry too much about cycle syncing at that point, since the name of the game
Is having a
is all
cycle?
about recovery,
Yeah.
connecting with your
Yeah.
baby, and just, like, gosh, just really trying to get to feel a little bit more like
Like a
yourself.
human?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I wouldn't worry so much about cycle syncing. Um, there's definitely habits that you can focus on in that fourth trimester that will help support your hormones postpartum and then moving forward also. But as you move out of that fourth trimester, something you can start doing if you don't yet have your cycle back is to actually sync your habits with the moon phase.
Mm.
uh, I know that sounds kind of woo woo. And I'm more very science driven. So this is kind of like as woo woo as I get. Um, but when I was pregnant, I was doing this. Also when I hadn't yet had gotten my period back postpartum. So if you are syncing with the moon phases, you are going to treat each new moon like day one of your menstrual cycle. So think
Mm.
new moon, new cycle.
Okay.
That's like day one of your period. And then every full moon is like your ovulation day. So the moon cycles match up. I think it's like 29 and a half days or something right around there. So those moon cycles match up really well with the quote unquote average menstrual cycle.
Mhm.
You can also, like I said, use the moon phases if you're pregnant, but also if you have unpredictable cycles, like if you are in perimenopause, late 30s and your 40s, maybe early 50s, where you're in that perimenopause time, and your cycles aren't as predictable, you can use the moon phases for that as well.
Mm.
Or if you have unpredictable cycles, like you were mentioning your friend, if she isn't in perimenopause or if she doesn't quite know why her cycles are so unpredictable, she can use the moon phases to possibly help regulate her cycle by matching some of her habits with the moon phases instead. Because if your cycles are very unpredictable and there's no actual reason why, like, perimenopause or maybe, maybe postpartum, those first
Mm.
several cycles are a little bit wacky. But if you don't know exactly why your cycles are irregular, that's definitely something to get some help with and get checked out. Because that's your body's giving you a sign that something's off with your hormones and you might need a little extra help with them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's like clockwork. Like if it does not come that day, I'm like, am I
Am
pregnant?
I pregnant?
And yeah, the past two times it did not come on that day. I was pregnant. So yeah, so I've always been one of those clockwork people. And I'm like, I don't know how people like don't have a period. Like some birth controls like don't, you don't have a period for like several months. I'm like, I would be having a heart attack because that's too stressful. But yeah, no, that's really helpful. And I like that you mentioned the moon phases too, because then you can kind of get a sense of like how it will be once it's kind of time to actually start like looking at your actual cycle and you're having more regular periods like after baby and whatnot. And even with that, mine was pretty normal. Mine came back pretty fast and then it was normal. I was like, oh, I didn't experience this like 6-month period where it was like all over the place. So I guess I don't know if that was lucky or not.
Well,
Which,
it's something to say for
yeah,
your hormone health, right?
yeah, exactly. At the time, I was like, dang it, I already got my period back. But I'm sure other people would, be appreciative. So you just got to look at it from that way. But how can we actually start like implementing cycle syncing, and like how long does it start to take to start feeling those like great effects from it, where you're feeling more energized, you're feeling in alignment, all that good stuff?
So, first of all, start tracking your menstrual cycle if you are not tracking it
Mm.
yet. Most women I talk to are already doing this, which is great. But if you aren't yet, just start there. And tracking it every single day, not just your period days, not just
Mm.
the days you're bleeding, tracking every single day how you're feeling. So, track things like your energy levels that day, symptoms like cravings, mood swings, your sleep patterns, even your bathroom habit, brain fog, acne, bloating and gas, any sort of like breast tenderness or pain, headaches, joint pain, how you felt during your workouts that day. Um, so those, you know, yes, there's more that can affect those things than just your menstrual cycle. But if you start tracking how you're feeling every single day, after several cycles, you'll most likely start noticing patterns.
Mm.
Um, and then, so once you start tracking, once you have a good feel for what your, normal, usual cycle is, from there, I would just choose one or two small habits to start adjusting around your cycle. You don't need to completely overhaul your life overnight. Um, that's definitely not how I coach. I don't coach in extremes or anything, so make it a very gradual process and know that it will look slightly different for each woman because, like we were saying before, each woman, our bodies are all unique and different. And so are our situations and lives. So that's why getting to know your unique body by paying attention to how you feel every single day and how your habits make you feel is so incredibly important. And some of the changes that you might notice, that you might feel, they could be fairly quick.
Right.
Maybe within that first cycle, you notice you have more energy, you wake up more refreshed. Or maybe your period was just a little bit easier at that first cycle. But in general, I would say to expect feeling some of the bigger changes after about 3 months,
Okay.
because your hormones are kind of on like a 90-day pattern. So, like the egg that you release during ovulation this cycle, it
Mhm.
actually started maturing about 90 days ago.
Okay.
So, yes, you have your, menstrual cycle, whether that's like 25, 35 days, for you, but then your hormones are also kind of on a 90-day pattern. So that's why if you make changes, you might notice something right away, but also stay the course because once you hit that kind of magical 90-day mark, you're probably going to be noticing some more bigger changes as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I think that sounds really attainable to just do, one or two small habits instead of like I know myself sometimes I'll get really overambitious. I'm like, I'm just gonna overhaul everything at once. And then spoiler alert, that does not work. Like you fall off the wagon pretty quick. Whether it's like you drop everything or you just like one by one, like little parts that you were implementing start dropping like flies. So I think that's really attainable and makes it a lot easier. Do you have any like specific apps that you recommend using? I know I use something called Glow. I have the free version and it works pretty well, but do you have like any apps or any like do you recommend just like journaling or like having a bullet journal or something like that to track it, or what's like your recommendation?
Yeah, so there are tons and tons of different, period tracking, menstrual cycle tracking apps out there now. One that I like to use is called Wild AI. It's wild.ai. Um, and that is actually it's really great to help, active women, exercising women, and not just like pro athlete women, just like us average women who exercise,
Right.
Um, so it has lots of different tracking features in there, but then it also based upon where you are in your cycle and your, I guess how you feel during your cycle typically, it gives you suggestions on how to adjust your exercise and nutrition through the cycle. So that's really cool. And then you can also connect with a coach through that as well. Um, and otherwise, just normal tracking apps. Yeah, there's that Glow, there's Clue. I think there's one called Flow. There's Pandara is
And
good.
there's a lot.
Yeah,
It can be overwhelming. It's like, which one do I pick?
yeah. And honestly, don't stress over like which one's the best. Because a lot of them probably have very similar features. And if you're just starting to track, don't worry about which one's the best. Because I don't think there is one that's best. Different apps are going to be better for different women. So just pick one, pick a free one, and get going with that.
Yeah.
If you start tracking things more advanced, like basal body temperature and cervical mucus and all that, like signs of ovulation, then there are, maybe some paid apps that might be helpful. But otherwise, for the average woman just tracking those symptoms every day, just find a free app that you will be most likely to remember to use every single day.
I think that's the best thing to do because if you're not using it, it doesn't matter how cool the app is.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about like each phase of the cycle and maybe like a little bit like at each phase what we should be doing in terms of workouts, in terms of nutrition, in terms of like work. Because I know like sometimes we can be feeling demotivated during certain times in our cycle and things like that. So can you kind of break down each phase and then what's kind of the best thing to do for each one?
Yeah, definitely. So, as a reminder, there are 4 distinct phases of your menstrual cycle. So, phase 1, day 1 of your cycle, is the menstruation phase. So, that's day 1 of your period.
Okay.
So, this starts the first day of actual bleeding. So, if you have any days of spotting before your period actually starts, some women tend to spot for like 1 or 2 days before an actual flow starts. Those days of spotting don't technically count as day 1 of your cycle. So the first day of actual blood flow is day 1 of that menstruation phase. So this phase should last between 3 to 7 days. And during the menstruation phase, estrogen and progesterone are both at their lowest point of the whole cycle. The first few days of this phase, you might notice lower energy levels, maybe not feeling very social. So try not to overcommit to a bunch of social obligations during this phase if you can help it. So prioritizing activities that really fill your cup up, those self-care activities can be very helpful during this phase. And then, I'll kind of break down, like by exercise, by business, and by nutrition, different habits you can focus on by the phases. So let's start with exercise. If symptoms bother you, especially those first few days of your period, maybe some light, gentle exercise like walking or yoga. Otherwise, if symptoms don't bother you, go ahead and jump into some, slightly a little bit more intense exercise. So increasing your weights. Cardio, that's a little bit higher intensity. Think like sprints. And again, this is going to really vary from woman to woman. Like day 1 of my period, I usually, especially these first 2 periods postpartum, I like the only symptom I really have is just like bleeding. So it's really smooth sailing for me. So like I went for a run today. Today's day 1 and I went for a run and I felt just fine. No, I wasn't like running super duper fast. But so that's where it's going to vary from woman to woman. Just listen to your body. Does your body need just kind of really gentle movement, or do you feel like you have a little bit of energy already those first, 1 or 2 or 3 days of your period? So, with estrogen and progesterone being low, that can really that can really affect how you feel. It really varies from woman to woman. But in general, for exercise, you can push a little bit more once you're a couple days into your cycle. Then for nutrition, you really want to focus on getting an omega-3 fatty acid, zinc, iron, protein. You should be focusing on getting adequate amount of protein and every day of your cycle. But some great foods to have during the menstruation phase are foods like walnuts, avocados, coconut oil. They have some great omega-3 fatty acids in them. Spinach, kale, fatty fish like salmon, pumpkin seeds, eggs, beef, flax seeds, lentils. So that can really, help top off your stores of, like I said, omega-3s, zinc, and iron. And then make sure that you are pairing those iron-rich foods like spinach with foods with vitamin C. So like strawberries or citrus fruits, because that helps your body absorb that iron from those, especially those plant-based sources of iron. And then also during this phase, wanting to reduce foods or drinks that add to inflammation, because you are in kind of a state of inflammation as your body's shedding, its uterine lining during this phase. So avoiding things like a lot of caffeine, alcohol, lots of sugar, because those can add to the inflammation and then can actually kind of increase some of those symptoms like cramping that you might have during your period.
Makes sense.
Then the next phase. So phase 2 is the
work-wise. Would you?
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, let's go back. So for business, your menstruation phase is a really good time for kind of reflection and some quote unquote inner work. So really thinking about, is what I'm doing working? Is what I'm doing what I want to be doing? Do I feel very aligned with my work?
Okay.
So it's a good time for self-reflection and kind of that improvement. Also very good time for organization. So some of that back end, kind of planning work during your menstruation phase. Because like I said, you might not be feeling the most social or outgoing in this phase. So
like kind of more mindless stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Not like front facing camera stuff. If you can help it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Then phase 2 is the follicular phase. So the follicular phase, the length of this phase can vary from woman to woman. And this is what often determines the length of your entire menstrual cycle. So during this phase, estrogen starts to rise in preparation of ovulation. During this phase, you'll typically feel more energy. Your body is actually more resilient to stress. You can handle a little bit less sleep. No, that doesn't mean use that as an excuse to purposely stress yourself out, but you are just a little bit more resilient to that. You do have a decrease in metabolism during this phase as well. And you are more sensitive to insulin. So that's good. You want to be sensitive to insulin because that means you're less prone to blood sugar swings. And blood sugar swings have so much to do with hormone health. The more blood sugar swings you have, the less consistent energy you have, the worse sleep you'll get, the worse PMS symptoms you'll have. It's just blood sugar swings are connected to so many unwanted symptoms that a lot of people don't realize are connected to it. So this phase of your cycle, you are less prone to blood sugar swings, which is great. And then also you might notice that your libido might increase during this phase. That's just your body kind of getting you ramping up to get pregnant. Even if it's not even if your goal this cycle isn't to get pregnant, your body's
not always in tune with that.
Yeah, your body's goal is to get pregnant every cycle. So that's why you might notice that increased libido in this phase too. So during the follicular phase, for exercise, your body can handle higher intensities. With the estrogen rising, that's a great time to lift heavier weights, do higher intensity workouts. Your body's primed to build muscle easier and also to recover better during this phase. So, think HIIT classes or heavier weights at this time. And if you do exercise in the heat, you'll likely find that you're better able to handle the heat during this phase as well. Your core body temperature is a little lower during this phase. And your resting heart rate is actually a little bit lower during this phase as well. So lots of different factors help those more difficult, more intense workouts feel a little bit easier to hit during this phase. Then for nutrition, you want to focus on what's called cruciferous vegetables. So like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, they have something in them called DIM, which helps remove excess estrogen from your body. So once your body's done with the estrogen that it used, you don't want it to stick around in your body. You want your body to be able to get rid of that estrogen that it's all done with. Otherwise, it can lead to something called estrogen dominance, which can lead to a whole slew of, again, unwanted symptoms.
Right.
So, that those cruciferous vegetables help with that, but also going to the bathroom every single day, like having a bowel movement every single day. So making sure you're having enough fiber in your diet too can also help make sure that you are helping aid your body get rid of that estrogen. So you also want to focus on B vitamins during this phase. Some good sources of B vitamins include meat, fish, grains, eggs, dairy, especially like whole milk dairy is very good because then you have that fat in there too. Liver, not my thing, but you know what? Organ meats are very good for you, but I just can't.
Yeah.
But if you can, go for it. Shellfish, avocados, sweet potatoes, and other starchy vegetables, dark leafy greens. So again, like kale, spinach, collard greens or beet greens, beans like lentils and chickpeas, sunflower seeds, asparagus, cauliflower, potatoes, oranges. So those are all great sources of B vitamins to have during this phase. And then you also want to, just like in the menstruation phase, pay attention to zinc-rich foods because they help support testosterone. So as women, yes, we do have testosterone and we do need testosterone. It's not at the same levels as obviously men's, but it does play a very important role in our menstrual cycle. So paying attention to those zinc-rich foods to help support testosterone, like beets, oysters, again, not my thing, but hey, go for it. Pumpkin seeds. And here's one that I bet a lot of the listeners will appreciate hearing, dark chocolate. So that is a good source of zinc. But make sure that it's at least 72% raw cacao. Okay. So not like the super ultra high process, like the less step that's added to that natural cacao, the better. So dark chocolate that's at least 72% is going to, really have a lot of that good zinc in there.
Okay.
And for business or really for home life, I mean, whatever's going on in your life, it's great to know these things. So during the follicular phase, this is a great time for creating and brainstorming. So you're very creative. So maybe planning a new program or writing your blog post or writing your social media content. You're generally feeling more social during this phase. So planning, kind of batching podcast recordings or recording videos for a course that you're doing. Trying new things, during this phase. This is a great time that you're probably feeling more outgoing. So, and it doesn't just need to be in business, but maybe you want to try a new workout class at the gym. Yeah. This is a great phase to try that in. Great time to work on big projects. Again, whether that's during work or maybe you are repainting a room in your house. And try to plan launches for during your follicular phase if possible.
Okay.
Obviously, it won't always line up like that. Like today, a Black Friday sale. Like we can't always line it up.
But you can work ahead and make it happen for that time so that you're not like actively doing anything on those days.
Yes, exactly. I mean, follicular phase is the time to get stuff done, especially the creative stuff, the stuff that requires more mental energy and like I said, just more social obligation. Great time to do that too.
Makes sense.
So then phase 3 of the cycle, your menstrual cycle, it is the ovulation. This is the shortest, but actually most important phase of the entire cycle. And ovulation is essential for your body to produce hormones. So if you're not ovulating regularly, it's really hard for your body to have optimal hormone health. So during this phase, estrogen continues to rise, which then stimulates a surge of what is called luteinizing hormone, and FSH, which is called follicle stimulating hormone, and progesterone also start to rise. And so in a combined effort by lots of different hormones, a mature egg is released from one of your ovaries into the fallopian tube. And then once the egg is released, it is viable for just right around 24 hours. So that's why shortest but most important phase of the menstrual cycle. And, the whole ovulation phase lasts 24 to 48 hours out of your entire cycle. So once the egg is released, it remains in the fallopian tube, awaiting fertilization, because again, it's your body's goal to get pregnant, even if it's not yours. But if the egg is not fertilized within 24 hours, the egg it will disintegrate. So during ovulation, again, just like follicular phase, you might be having a lot more higher energy, higher libido, because again, your body wants to get pregnant, more social. But actually, around your ovulation phase, you have slightly lowered immunity. So even though you're feeling high energy, something to note, I guess, that you do have a little bit lowered immunity during this phase. But for exercise, again, go with the higher intensities, HIIT type of workouts if that's what you enjoy, heavier weights. As you do get closer to this ovulation phase, though, your joint laxity may also increase, which means that your risk of injury is a little slightly higher. So paying extra attention to making sure you warm up properly and are very careful with your exercise technique. Now, as somebody who has a fitness background, I have a fitness degree. I want to make sure that you're always taking time to warm up and being careful with your exercise technique. But during this phase, it is even, just pay extra attention, like I said. And if you are, someone who competes in different events or races, if you have any control, try to plan those. Let's say you're running a half marathon or a marathon or something. Try to pick one that will be kind of around that follicular ovulation phase for you too. It's not saying you can't do those things when you're in the other phases, but just
better.
More optimized. Makes it feel a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So then during ovulation for nutrition, very similar focus, just like the follicular phase. So cruciferous vegetables like the broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, and fiber, again, because you want to help your body rid itself of that estrogen that it's done with. Magnesium-rich foods like dark leafy greens, seaweed, almonds, avocado, pumpkin, and flaxseed, again, dark chocolate, and some of those zinc-rich foods, again, as well. So to kind of top off those stores, while you are in this phase. Then for business or just for life, you're still probably feeling more social and outgoing, very similar to the follicular phase. This is a great time to really focus on productivity, big projects, big launches, speaking engagements, or anything you need to record like videos or podcasts. So during your follicular and your ovulation phase, great time to do a lot of those big energy projects, whether it's for work, home, family, whatever it is. So if you can control that, try to schedule them in the follicular and ovulation phases. Then the last phase of your menstrual cycle is called the luteal phase. So this phase can be anywhere between 11 to 17 days long, but it is usually around 12 to 14 days long. And after ovulation, if that egg was not fertilized, it disintegrates, like I said before. And progesterone continues to rise throughout the luteal phase. So the first half-ish of your cycle, estrogen is the dominant hormone. The second half, after ovulation, progesterone is the dominant hormone. So if you're like, what are all these phases and what's happening? Easy way to remember is estrogen dominates, ovulation happens, and then progesterone dominates. So that's a very quick and easy way to remember it. So during the luteal phase, you might notice that your energy might start to decrease especially as you get further into your luteal phase. And I like to break the luteal phase up into early luteal and late luteal when I'm thinking about my habits, because early luteal, I'll probably have a little bit more energy than late luteal, which is, like that week or so before your period.
Right.
So during this phase, your metabolism speeds up. So you will probably notice an increase in appetite. You may notice some PMS symptoms like fatigue or mood swings. But like I was saying before, if your symptoms are more than just kind of like a minor annoyance, like if they really disrupt your life, that's a sign that your hormones need some extra attention and some TLC. So if your PMS symptoms are more than just minor symptoms, consider really examining your habit and looking at how you can support your hormones. Then also during the luteal phase, you have decreased insulin sensitivity. So that means you are more prone to blood sugar swings.
Okay.
So a lot of women say that they have cravings, maybe chocolate cravings or sweet cravings before their periods. It's not saying you should never eat that stuff, but you need to pay even more attention to your habits around your blood sugar, because during this phase, you are actually more prone to blood sugar swings, which is only going to feed into those cravings even more too.
Right.
And then also during this phase, you're probably feeling less social again, maybe just a little bit more reserved. So during the luteal phase for exercise, because of the higher levels of progesterone during this phase, it is a little bit harder for your body to make and maintain muscle. So pushing it super hard during this phase won't really help you to move forward in any of your exercise or fitness goals. So focus on medium to lower intensity endurance cardio. So not like HIIT style classes or anything. So think easy running or walking for cardio. Strength, you want to go lower to medium weights with slightly higher reps and increase the rest time between sets. So something like maybe 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps at a lighter weight. Whereas maybe during follicular phase, you are doing 4 sets of 4 reps at a heavier weight.
Right.
So just kind of not just adjusting your weight, but also adjusting your sets and reps with that too. And again, really focus on technique of your exercise, of your weightlifting exercises during this phase. And the week before your period is an ideal week to deload, meaning that you're backing off slightly on training, workouts. It doesn't mean you need to totally stop. It just means, again, nice light activity. You're just kind of going through the motions. It's kind of giving your body and your mind a time to catch up, where you're still being consistent with the habit, but it's just very light. And that's going to help prevent that physical burnout, but also that mental burnout too, of you're not just trying to push it every single workout, every single day.
Right.
Because like you said, nobody can maintain that. You can't go, full force on anything and expect to maintain that level.
Right.
And actually, I line all of my clients' workouts. I line all their deload weeks up with the week leading up to their periods too. So then for nutrition during the luteal phase, you again want to focus on healthy fats to help with that progesterone production. So again, like avocado, fatty fish, olives or olive oil, nuts, seeds, focusing again on foods that are high in vitamin B6. So starchy vegetables like potatoes. And as I mentioned before, with your body being more prone to blood sugar spikes and crashes, you want to pay extra attention to eating balanced meals, meaning that you want to make sure you're getting plenty of protein in. I tell my clients aim for 25 to 30 grams at each meal of protein, making sure you're getting lots of great vegetables in, and, some good whole food carbs too. So meaning like potatoes, starchy vegetables like that are great sources of carbohydrates as well. So making sure that your meals are just carb heavy, but nice and balanced, even if that's what your body's like asking you for.
Yeah. Like
Still
you're
have
just like wanting pasta, but you need to even it out a little bit.
exactly. Yeah. Have your pasta, but make sure you're having healthy fats and protein and some veggie with it too. because that will help prevent those blood sugar spikes and crashes, which, like I said before, those can cause more cravings, lower energy, and they can contribute to hormonal imbalances, PMS, and other symptoms and health issues too.
Right.
Um, and then actually during the luteal phase, iron and magnesium levels in your body drop, which can cause some cravings.
Hmm.
And also this causes our mood and energy levels to drop too. So by adding in more iron and magnesium with, like I said, chocolate before, for example, you can help keep your hormones and mood balanced and your energy levels a bit higher. So those cravings are kind of just telling your body, or it's basically your body telling you what it needs more of at that time.
Right.
So that's why having not just balanced meals during this phase either, but during all phases, so that your vitamin and mineral stores are really topped off going into the phases that they especially need them. Then for business and life during the luteal phase, great time for cleaning and organizing some of those back end business tasks, planning, budgeting. It is a good time for decision making, but maybe not taking action on those decisions yet. So good time for decision making and planning, but not actually taking action on those yet. In this phase, delegate what you can, whether it's work tasks or whether it's at home or whether it's you just saying, I'm sorry, I cannot help with that activity at school.
Right.
It's okay to say no to those things. And avoid those big, huge projects during this phase if you can. You can't always line it up, but control what you can and line up what you can with these different phases.
It's easier when you have your own business. When you're in corporate world, you can't be like, not this week.
Oh, yeah.
For next week for that. So yeah, when you have your own business, it makes it a lot easier, which pretty much all the people listening to this are in either starting their business or they already have a business. So it makes it a lot easier when you can kind of dictate your schedule a little more.
Yeah. So that's one of the big advantages of owning your own business is being able to really dictate your schedule around your family life, but also around your menstrual cycle as well.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's amazing. And thank you so much for like that nice breakdown of each part of the phases and each thing that we should be doing in terms of workout, nutrition, and work wise, because I think that's really helpful for people to see like what we should be eating, what kind of exercise we should be doing, and like knowing that we don't need to push ourselves all the time in any area because it can lead to burnout. And we don't want that, especially as moms, because we already have enough to be burnt out with when it comes to our personal lives. So, yeah. So I just want to kind of round this out with the question that I ask everyone who is a guest on the show. So, what is your number one tip for moms who are looking to either start or grow their business?
So I had to think a little bit about my answer to this question, but what really popped into my head was build a business that works for you and your life and your priorities, and understand that that may shift as you move through different chapters of your life. Like you're about to have a baby. I had a baby last fall, and so that definitely shifts how my business needs to be run and how much of my energy I want to put into my business as well. And don't compare yourself to other business owners because none of them are in the exact same life and situation as you are. And that took me a little bit longer to learn is to not compare. But once I kind of let that comparison go, it was just like a weight lifted off my shoulders.
Totally, 100%. And it's also seasons as well. Like if you're in a current season and you're feeling like you're not getting much done with your business or personally or wherever you're at, it's not always going to be like that. So just embrace your current season as hard as it may be. You might be wanting to rip your hair out, but in 3 months, things are probably going to be a lot different. So just stick it out and stay the course.
Yes. Control the controllable.
Yeah.
You can't always control your sleep because maybe your baby wakes you up a lot or
Yeah.
control what you can. Try to let go of what you cannot.
Yep. I love that. Awesome. And can you tell us where we can find you online? So your website, your favorite social media channel, all that good stuff.
So I hang out on Instagram most. So on Instagram, you can find me at courageous_woman_wellness. I'm also on Facebook as Courageous Woman Wellness. And, I like to, like I said, really help busy women, whether they're moms, whether they're not moms, whether they are moms with littles or moms with older kids. I really like to help them fit those realistic and sustainable hormone healthy habits in their daily life. So I've got lots of different ways you can work with me, lots of different resources, free or paid. So go ahead, give me a follow, send me a DM, say hi, and then take what you can from my page.
Yeah, amazing. I will make sure to link everything in the show notes for you guys to go check Jess out. But thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'd love it if you would head on over to our free Facebook group called Moms Make Money Collective to connect with us further. If you're more of an Instagram fan, make sure you're following us on Instagram at Moms Make Money Collective. If you're loving the show, make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcast. Your feedback means the absolute world to us. We'll see you in the next episode.